They told you to love with all your heart, to trust, to be kind, to forgive, but they never told you this. That love can be a noose. That kindness without leverage is an invitation to be used. You weren't betrayed because you were stupid. You were betrayed because you made it clear you cared. It happens in love. You text first, you stay up, you overthink, and then they ghost you not because you weren't enough, but because you were available. It happens in business. You start a company, you bring on a co-founder, share your vision, your code, your soul, and then the funding comes in, and you're voted out. It happens everywhere in family, in boardrooms, even in friendships that pretend to be forever. In this world, the ones who survive aren't the ones who feel the most there, the ones who can walk away without flinching, the ones who say nothing while everyone else screams. Still doubt it. Let me introduce you to Cesare Borgia. In 1503, he was Italy's most feared man, a duke, a military genius, a walking empire so powerful that Machiavelli himself called him the ideal prince. 4 years later, his body lay in a ditch, alone, unarmed. Betrayal never knocks, it smiles, and it always visits those too sentimental to see it coming. This world doesn't run on kindness. It runs on perception, and perception is power. And here's the part that should disturb you. You're in this game already, being measured, watched, played. They shame your silence. They guilt your boundaries. They call you cold when you finally stop explaining yourself. But listen closely, the less you care, the more power you hold. Because emotion is a leash, and the man who controls his reactions controls the room. Today, you won't just hear a story, you'll hear a blueprint. Not for being liked, not for being loved, but for being untouchable. You'll walk into a world full of noise and become the silence they fear. You'll see the faces around you not as friends or foes, but as players. And you'll stop letting your weakness write their script, because from this moment on, you are no longer prey. You are the storm behind the silence. Emotion is a leash. He who controls it controls others. You've been told that emotion is power, that being vulnerable is strength, that the more you feel, the more human. You are wrong. Emotion in the wrong hands becomes a weapon, and when you don't control it, someone else will. Let me show you how. Michael was brilliant, Harvard educated, a rising star in his firm. Everyone liked him. Everyone smiled at him. Until one morning, during a team meeting, Michael said the fatal words, "I'm struggling with this project. I could really use some help." 2 months later, he was out. Dismissed. Replaced. What happened? Sarah, his supportive colleague, one who smiled, nodded, clapped in meetings, had been whispering upstairs, "Michael's cracking. He can't handle pressure. He's not leadership material." And the truth, she didn't need to prove anything. She just needed him to look weak. He gave them permission to doubt him by being honest. That's what no one tells you. Honesty is not safe. Transparency is not rewarded. Emotion is not sacred, not in a world run by perception. It happens beyond the boardroom. A young woman opens up in a relationship, shares her past, her wounds, her fears, and the man she trusted starts using her pain as ammunition in every fight. Why are you so emotional all the time? He mocks the very soul she dared to expose. That's why the first law of power is simple. Never bleed in front of wolves. You don't have to be broken for them to break you. You just have to look breakable. Machiavelli didn't survive because he was unshakable. He survived because he seemed unshakable. Even when chaos was closing in, he wore calm like armor. You think that's fake? No. That's discipline. That's strategy. That's survival. In today's world, your tears are screenshots. Your doubts are forwarded. Your weakness is repackaged as gossip and weaponized without mercy. So here's your new rule. No public breakdowns. No crying for likes. No explaining your struggles to people who haven't earned your silence. Every time you show your emotional state, someone calculates how to use it. You are not a soul to be understood. You are a system to be decoded. And the more predictable your feelings, the easier you are to control. So protect yourself. Don't broadcast your pain. Don't explain your heart. Don't hand out your peace like it's free. Because in a room full of men who overreact, the man who controls his face controls the outcome. And in silence, he becomes the one they fear the most. The psychology of the room is simple. Those who speak least control most. Who holds the power in a room? It's not the loudest voice. Not the one who tells the best stories. Not the one who commands attention. It's the one who doesn't speak until everyone else has revealed themselves. Silence is strategy. In 1945, as the world was rebuilding from war, Churchill made speeches. Roosevelt charmed the table. But Stalin, he sat still, unmoved, unsmiling, watching. And when he finally spoke, the room went quiet. Why? Because silence makes people listen when you choose to break it. That's the psychology of power. Speak less, mean more. But don't just look to history, look around you. In corporate boardrooms, there's always that one man, leaning back, watching others argue. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't pitch in. He lets them exhaust themselves, spill their fears, contradict their values. And when the room burns itself out, he speaks just one sentence, and everyone nods. Not because he's right, but because he waited. Most people talk because they fear being misunderstood. But the powerful man, he's fine with being misunderstood. He lets you guess, and in your guessing, you expose more than he ever does. Because silence creates mystery, and mystery is terrifying. You don't fear what you can see. You fear what you can't predict, what you can't calculate, what you can't read. And so you chase it. You obsess over it. You try to decode the man who reveals nothing. That's how control begins. The more you explain, the more people think they understand you. And once they think they understand you, they stop respecting you because they believe they've mapped your walls. So here's the rule. Never speak to fill space. Never answer to reduce tension. Never explain to earn trust. Instead, let silences hang. Let discomfort work in your favor. Let them speak more. Because the one who talks first loses positioning. And next time you feel the urge to prove yourself, don't lower your voice. Narrow your words. Stare longer. Say less. Because the less you give them, the more they lean in. And the more they lean in, the less grounded they become. Stillness is not absence. It's pressure. Unapologetic, heavy, the kind of presence that fills the room without needing to declare itself. Because in a room full of noise, the man who speaks least writes the terms. Reaction is slavery. Stillness is a weapon. Because once you react, you're not leading. You're following. They insult you, so you defend. They lie about you, so you over-explain. They ignore you, so you chase. And in all that motion, you become theirs. Reaction is not power. Reaction is permission. It's handing your emotions to someone else and saying, "Here, pull the strings. Let me tell you what power looks like." It looks like silence when you're expected to explode. It looks like stillness when chaos surrounds you. It looks like a man who hears everything and answers with nothing. Why? Because he knows something others don't. Stillness is pressure. Stillness is control. Stillness makes them speak first and expose themselves. Think of a chessboard. The novice reacts to every move. Always responding. Always explaining. Always on defense. But the master, he waits. He watches. He lets you overextend, then strikes in silence when it counts. It happens every day. A startup founder gets ambushed in an investor call. They say she's too young, unfit to lead. But instead of defending her resume, she pauses, smiles, and slides forward. The revenue report twice. The growth they expected. She never reacted. She responded, or a man receives that dreaded text. "We need to talk." He knows the playbook. She withdraws to provoke him. to trigger a chase. But he doesn't bite. Hours pass, then days. And suddenly, she's the one unraveling. Because he didn't react. He left her to confront the silence she created. That's the art of stillness. Here's your new protocol for power. When you're provoked, pause. When you're insulted, smile. When you're challenged, ask a question. Don't give an answer. And when they demand a reaction, give them your calm. Nothing destabilizes the manipulator more than a man who won't flinch. Because when you don't give them what they expect, you force them to confront the one thing they fear most, their own loyalty is a beautiful lie. Leverage is real power. Loyalty sounds beautiful. It feels sacred. We're told it's the highest virtue. But that's the first deception. Loyalty isn't love. It's leverage. Or it's nothing. Look at Caesar, respected, feared, worshipped. And then, on the Senate floor, he was stabbed 23 times. Not by enemies, by allies, by Brutus, his protégé, his loyal friend. And in that final moment, Caesar didn't scream. He didn't beg. He simply asked, "You to my child." It wasn't pain that killed him. It was the realization that loyalty is a myth. Because people aren't loyal to you. They're loyal to what you provide, your influence, your status, your usefulness. When your value drops, so does their devotion. Machiavelli understood this long before modern psychology. He wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, sovereign, and covetous. And if you build your power on their affection, you build on shifting sand." One proof. Look around. A young entrepreneur builds a startup from scratch, late nights, burned savings, total sacrifice. He brings in his closest friend to help scale. They pitch to investors, get a term sheet, and suddenly, he's cut out. Board votes him out as CEO. His friend, quiet, complicit, because loyalty ends where opportunity begins. In corporations, your closest teammates will ghost you the moment layoffs begin. In friendships, comfort ends when you stop being convenient. In love, many say forever until something shinier appears. So, here's your new rule. Stop building bonds. Start building leverage. Leverage is what keeps people from turning. Not their feelings, not their promises. What they fear losing if they cross you. Never retaliate emotionally. Respond like a ghost with a sword. When they betray you, your instincts scream. Strike now. Make them feel it. Show them you're not weak. Don't. That's what they expect. That's what they want. Because if you lash out, they own your emotions. If you react, they set the tempo. If you show pain, they win before you've even responded. Understand this. Power doesn't flinch. Power disappears, then returns without warning. You don't believe me? Let me tell you about Al Capone in 1929. 7 of his rivals from Bugs Moran's gang were lined up and executed. It was cold, strategic. No drama. No shouting. Just silence and bodies. And where was Capone? Nowhere near it. He was in Florida, establishing an alibi, smiling for photographs, pretending nothing had ever happened. He didn't react. He responded. Calculated. Inevitable. Quiet as death. Because real power doesn't shout. It watches. It waits. It strikes once and never repeats itself. Rule from the shadows. Influence without exposure. True power doesn't seek the spotlight. It builds the stage, chooses the actors, directs the scene, then disappears before the curtain rises. Because the strongest man in the room is rarely the one talking. It's the one who gave the speaker the script. Visibility is seductive and dangerous, because once they see you, they study you. Once they study you, they envy you. And once they envy you, te sabotage. But if they don't know where you stand, they don't know where to aim. That's how you rule, not by being seen, but by being everywhere without ever being obvious. Real power doesn't need recognition. It just needs access.